All right, hello everybody. Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Method here, back for another lesson today, and I'm going to try to do it in our latest style where let's get right to the point, jump right in, and especially with this lesson, I've set it up so it's theoryless, no theory. Let's just do this with some shapes, some visual understanding, and then I'll make another lesson that goes over, answers the questions like, how does this work? And hey, this doesn't show up in my music theory. How would I even know how to find this stuff and where it comes from and answer all my questions? So we'll do that in another lesson because there is it is all explainable and there's a bunch of stuff about it that is helpful to know. But today, let's just show the beginners mostly, I guess. I think some of you watching will already know this, and but I'm hoping to capture some people who are kind of interested in what's known as jazz comping. You've kind of heard of a 2-5-1. You know, it's the chords of a scale, the second chord going to the fifth chord, going to the one chord. So that's why it's called a 2-5-1. This is all the theory we're going to get today, but just to get people beginners up to speed. In the key of C, C, E, F, G, counting them all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The two chord C, D, so we got D going to the 5, G, C, D, E, F, G, going to the 1, C. All right, so let's do that. And now they're in this sequence. There's major and minor chords. Real beginners aren't going to know that, but you're not going to really need to know that today. So, and we'll have a practice track that I'll play along to show you how it sounds as well. And the link will be in the description that you can download it if you haven't already, because this has been in a couple of my 2-5-1 type lessons already. Here we go. Beginners will know this very generic D chord shape, because it's in a lot of songs that you play with the C chord and the G chord going to D. Alright, so let's swap that onto a different string set that we're maybe not totally used to. We'll start with this where it is on the green shape. So by string set, I mean here it is on 3, 2, and 1. That's why this is going to be called 4, 3, and 2, if I mentioned that during the lesson. And here we are on the 3rd fret. You can play that same shape. It's got a weird sound. Now some of you will know, oh Mark, when I play my root up here with my thumb on G and I play this, that's my jazz chord grip for the 5 chord. Come on, man. Everybody knows that, right? That's what some people are saying. But beginners won't say that. Now today we're going to leave out all these roots to make everything simple. And for 2 reasons. The bass players covering the bass anyways. You need to know that bass note when you're trying to do something like with your guitar alone. But in more of a band setting, it's kind of helpful to keep your sound spectrum in the middle. Avoid lower notes. That's getting covered by the drums and the bass, and the higher notes are getting covered by horns and pianos and stuff like that. So you want to be right in the middle for good sonic presence in the mix of all the instruments. So that's why this is going to help you with that. So we're going to keep all our grips today on 4, 3, and 2. If there's roots involved, and there will be, we're just chucking them out the window today. So we start on the 3rd fret here. Now let's set up an equally spaced set of 4 up to the next octave. What does that even mean? Well, here's the next octave. Up the so if we got the 3rd fret, same thing from the 12. You're up at the 15th fret. Try to make sure All right. So now there's actually technically there's an even number of fret spaces in between these 2 chords. We can set up 4 chords that are completely evenly spaced, like a little symmetry here. It's really cool. Now there's some theory I can explain on all of the stuff. Where does it come from? But I think that's where a lot of jazz lessons lose the beginners because they'll gladly go into, well, let me show you the trick here. This comes from this, and yeah, that's great, but it throws you off on a tangent that right now we don't need to know that. You need to know that after you get the goods here. This is the goods. Let's show you the goods. So here we got 4 evenly spaced chords. If we do a little trick, that is skip 2 frets, play the next same shape. So the little D triangle is what we're calling it. So here we go on the 3rd fret with our green. Somehow my oh, it's my headphones. You probably heard that all right. So anyways, now if you've been around guitar a little while and you just heard, well, then you know the theory that this is all about, but beginners won't know that. So anyways, it doesn't matter. Skip 2 to my Lou, skip 2. We got the blue one, skip 2 more. We got the yellow one, skip 2 more. We got that green one. Pretty cool. So we've got these grips, and guess what? They'll all work as substitutes for one another. So earlier we said, yeah, this is the grip. This green triangle is the grip I'd use for a 5 chord. So that's the jazz dominant 7th chord, the 5 chord in the 2-5-1. And so if we could use that grip over the 5, well, guess what? We can use this grip over the 5. We can use this grip over the 5. This one, and of course, obviously the same grip way up high. Now it just jumbles some of the intervals around, and it's actually adding in a special interval, but that's all theory we don't want to know about today. None of you need to know that if you're a beginner. But that's what some people who somewhat know their stuff will say, wait a minute, how could that even work? I mean, music theory states that this is my G7 chord, and this would be some totally different chord, and so would be a totally different chord. This is for like the people who've gone out into basic theory and mastered like the major scale, the chords that go with the major scale. Then all of a sudden you're kind of stuck because you feel like, okay, these are the rules. Now, what's all this jazz doing breaking these damn rules, right? Well, this is how you don't worry about any of that stuff. You learn the rules that are being broken here later. And how they're really not being broken. You're just using these symmetries that all make sense, these ways to substitute other things because of close relationships. These are very closely related, all of these in a very special way, but that's theory, and we're just skipping that today. So we've got these grips here. What we're going to do, though, I want to show you this whole thing is about these clusters. I'm going to play one for you right now. Watch my fingers. Watch where they are on the fretboard for a 2-5-1. Normally, you might think you're 2, then a little bit different here, 5, and then 1. That's not bad. But if you were down here, it might be like... But no one in jazz is playing those big... cowboy chord type things here. So you might see then back up here, but it's a lot of moving up and down. Check this out. Look at my hands all in one spot of the fretboard. Did you know a 2-5-1? Look at that. There's barely any movement there. Did you know a 2-5-1 was like that? I bet nobody's telling you that. I bet that one guy and that other guy in the jazz channel ain't telling you that. Totally ruin everything with terrible mistakes in there, but it was a couple of good bits in there. But hey, I practice, you practice, and that's what we do. We practice, and you got to get used to practicing to where someone hears it and you're played a wrong note. If you don't worry about it, then you're practicing and you're feeling much more free when you practice. Anyways, that's my excuse for sucking there. So here we go. We got you could see me taking some liberties there. I went outside, played a couple extra notes. If you want to know how to do that, well, we'll get into that in another lesson. I'm just here today to show you these clusters so we can keep this down to a low amount of minutes, and that gets more clicks. So more people to check out the channel and see what's going on. All right, so we're starting on we're just going to use the blue and the orange here. Just ignore what I had left on the print down there. And actually, let's just use the blue to start with. Well, actually, all we're going to do today is use the blue and the orange because these two have the magic clusters. These other ones, the yellow and the green that we're ignoring today, they're the 2 and the 1 are around this area, but it's a little bit farther spread apart, not as magical as these two clusters here. So I'm going to leave those for you to figure out and play around with and make your own diagram. Get your own damn diagram. So get your own graph paper and got to go to Walmart. And my last trip to Walmart it was hard to find in a spiral bound. Remember, you always want 4x4, not 5x5, because the 4x4 gives you a wider squares so you can fit more information in them. It's easier to see. So, okay. We got this blue shape here. So we're going to need some jazz grips, okay? So we talked about those earlier. Now the blue triangle is our grip for the 5 chord. We just kind of saw that. We're going to use that for our 5 chord. So what about our 1 chord? We're going to need a D minor. Well, that's right here. The root, obviously, on the 10th fret of the E string. Use your thumb for the Jimi Hendrix style. Or you can, however you like to play it. But today we're just going to forget that root, remember? We're just going to play the 4-3-2. It's all we need. So if you want some theory here, if you're like, well, how does that work for a D minor chord? And it gives us the 7th, so it's actually D minor 7, which is what we want for jazz. So we got the flatted 7th, the flatted 3rd, and the 5. Flatted 3rd for minor, flatted 7th for the 7th chord, and the flat 7 goes along with minor versus having the happier 7 in there, which would make it, well, I won't tell you what it'll make because that starts theory talk. All right, so anyways, but it makes another scale, or it's useful in another scale system. Okay, melodic minor. God darn it. So I didn't want to say that. Anyway, so here we go. Outline in red is the minor grip, and all we're going to do is use the 4-3-2 box there. So real simple, very simple, just straight up and down. You can play that, right? All right. So the next one we're gonna use is in green here, and that's this. You can hear the I had something else real quick in my mind. Oh, sorry. So anyways, you could do, I was just going to say, like, in case anybody wanted to know, it was like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you can kind of hear how those ring together in a chord shape. Okay, so now typically a jazz chord would include this note here. The jazz grip would be like this. And this little part right here, it's kind of like what I would consider, and if you go down to if we reference into our regular shapes that we know as a beginner, A minor, and all the songs that we know that have A minor. But anyways, you move that way up to where it would be on E minor. And then we move our, and that shows you the relationships, a strong relationship some of these chords have. But anyways, that would be our C grip. But we're not going to use, let's just use the The C triad here is what we would call it because it's C, E, G. If we had this note in there, it would be more like the 7th. But to keep it a little clearer today, we just can, they're both usable is what I'm trying to say. Taking too long to say it. So that's our shape. Now, so let's see it in a cluster is what we need to get right to the point here. And so there it is in the red. This is how it all fits together. In the red, it's our D minor shape. Since it overlapped a lot, I just used an outline. You can see it's just 2 notes are falling, but one stays the same in the original shape. That's like voice leading, right, of these chords. And if you'll notice, our red outline is first, our blue note is going to be second on our second string here. Red, blue, green. You've got a little line cliche happening there. So and you can even play that. Here I use the A minor shape or the interchangeable. And so I'll noodle around with that once again. So I just to interject a little something weird in there, which is kind of like what jazz does. I went down, I slid up into every alright, we'll just hear a little straightforward there. So you can play them individually to make your first something or other kind of like a solo in 251 over a 251, which has some uniqueness to it, and it's going to lock in with the chords, but you're going to kind of miss that jazziness that takes liberties where jazz is what you're hearing when you hear those like cool notes and like, wow, where was that? And where everyone goes like, well, that's this scale and the Barry Harris and the John Coltrane and then this guy and that guy. Yeah, they all did that, and you can explain these things all around the block. But the point is, you're really just going from other chord tones or scale tones coming across a real high tension that's not in anything and lining it back up with a note on the chord tone. So since what we're doing here is locking into the chord tones, so you can go that kind of stuff. So there's me. Here's me. Some people have requested like you should play more. So there's me playing. All right. So now we've got the orange shape. We'll just move on to that. I think we belabored this shape to death here. This is a pretty simple thing, but it's kind of cool. It's like wow, like all of that. Do you know how many jazz lessons I've watched, and nobody ever told me that? And if they did, well, I just missed it. But somebody's probably got a lesson they'll show me that, oh, yeah, I explained that in the 4 years ago on someone's channel. But anyways, not with a diagram where it was laid out right and so obviously in front of me I couldn't miss it without 10 hours of theory throwing me off, telling me that there's a flat second in there, because there is, but you don't need to know where and when and how just to do it. All right, so to start with, we've got the orange shape down here. So how does it all work out? Well, if you remember, here we are on the 6th fret. lowest note on the 4th string is the 6th fret. Okay, so now our red outline kind of shows, if you play just that red outline chord, you go, oh my gosh, that's my standard D minor grip. Hey, yeah, that is right there. And if we take off the root and we take off the 6th string, then we just got that little, once again, that A minor grip. So this green, row of chords here, say, wait, isn't straight up and down minor? Now this will get into a little theory, and it would be minor if we played the root on A. Then it's an A minor chord. However, remember, everything is in relationship to another thing. So if I play the C as the root, that's the A shaped chord, the A major shape, moved up to the 3rd fret. And because C is our implied root, then it makes up a whole C chord. And you're like, huh, but A minor and C major, oh yeah. And the key of C, A minor is its relative minor, and C, oh my gosh, look at the relationships jumping out at the beginners. But we don't have to know that today. Anyways, so this grip, the D minor grip, start with, we're just going to simplify it, 4-3-2. Move it right down to that D shape, super easy, and then slide that down to the 1. And we can hear that. Now this one, however, is taking it's a little bit, this one's probably going to have probably the most tension to it. Here, let's go right to the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, hold on a second. What can I count? Green. 2 bars of green back to red squares, orange, green. You might wonder where some of those other notes. Here's a variation. I was using I stepped into some of this, and go back and see my my previous lesson to this one, where I uncover these 4 shapes that you can use over the 5 chord that are direct. They're exactly coming from this. This is a part of that system. So these 2 lessons will overlap each other and allow you to comp and solo over 2-5-1 with hardly any theory knowledge. That now that you can have the fun, then you can go study the theory, and it's way easier to plug in because you got the sounds in your head first. So that's what I think about the biggest mistake on learning this stuff is people teach everything in reverse. They're like, well, here's the theory. And that's because, most students, including me, will ask, because the first thing you think is, wow, what scale was that? That, you're playing some kind of... And you're like, wow, that must be some kind of scale and some jazz cat must know this scale, and then I'm doing this scale, and then I'm doing this huge scale. And they're probably not doing that because it's hard for anybody to do. They've simplified it all the way down. Now you can figure out all that simplicity once you get the music in you. If you explain something with like, well, here, okay, you want to know the scale. Well, technically that actually is. I could tell you, well, that was Dorian, but it wasn't necessarily Dorian. But I'm using a pattern that's Dorian, and maybe some famous player also used this shape. I could explain it that way, and you just start getting lost in all these explanations and big pictures where, sure, it came from that scale, but I didn't use all those notes, and I probably won't use all those notes. I would just play, you can almost hear the lines, the chords coming through because I'm very specifically targeting things now in very easy to play shapes that provide me the basic skeleton, the core of what I need so that I can embellish and sound like something's happening. I know what I'm doing. Like here's the core. Because I know that core, then here's something I'm going to teach in the next lesson. I'll give you a preview. This is 4 notes. A 4-note arpeggio that I use over the 5 chord. I'm going to tell you where it comes from. I don't have to know any of that. But you've got 4 notes. So if I can play from a note below all those 4 notes, that's 4 more notes heading into the original framework of 4 notes. Now we have 8 notes. What if I can play 1 note above and work down into any of those notes, and it also sounds jazzy? That's 4 more notes. 4 times 3 is what? Well, if you said 12, you're on the money there. Yeah, 4 times 3 is 12. That's all 12 notes you can play over a 5 chord if you know the framework. The little 4-note skeleton structure that's going to work. You can, and it just gives you the ability to do what I just did there and just experiment now with some experiments that'll sort of sound like, hey, okay, finally something is coming together where I can experiment and it has some logic to it because that skeleton is a strategy. Then people will hear the strategy while they want to not know what you're doing as a guitarist, and they'll just think you got to know some huge scale. You know your strategy. So that's today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. So we can cut this down. It's probably already been another 40-minute lesson here, but that's it for today. As I lose the daylight here in the Harmony van. Yeah, I'm in a van. Where am I today? Because I do deliveries. That's how we are officially making our money since the channel doesn't make any money. I'm in Delavan, Wisconsin. You guys got this. So if you're nearby, hey, hello, how you doing? We're right north of Chicago, some bunch of miles. So, all right, thank you for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. And, well, I won't see you tomorrow, but you'll see on the next lesson. And hold me to my word on whatever I was talking about for the next lesson. I don't know. Put it in the comments. Ask me a question. Something like that. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Method. Remember it, or better yet, hit the subscribe, hit the like, because that's really important to show, like, hey, if this, like, helped you, if you thought, like, oh my gosh, that's really cool, and I didn't even have to get lost with theory, hit the like, and if you have any theory-based questions about anything, ask them in the comments. See you.